Learning Center. Glad you all could make it. How many members do we have here? You're not a member here. Well, the advantages of being a member are many. You get unlimited visits to the museum, plus you get to see every speaker presentation that we have with no admission cost. So if you change your mind, you can apply tonight's admission cost to a membership. So just keep that in mind. A few other housekeeping notes. We have a restroom if anyone is in need of, just about 15 feet to the left. So that's great. If you have cell phones with you, be sure and turn the ringer off so we don't get interrupted with that. A few things coming up in the near future for the museum. We've got the big County Fair Parade coming up on Friday, and we're going to have a truck in the parade. So when you see us, be sure and wave. Saturday, we've got the Dino Arts and Crafts Workshop. It's going to be down in the courtyard, so that'll be fun for the kids. Hey, you'll like that. Huh? I think so. You like owls and you like dinos, right? Of course. We have our summer travel series for kids taking place throughout the summer. Lindsay Crump, one of our junior board members, I guess you could say, she's kind of spearheading that. And coming up on the 19th is going to be the Mighty Vikings. So these are all geared toward kids, and she's had a variety of topics all summer long, so you might want to check into that. Our next speaker series after tonight will be Becky Millinger. She's going to talk about geology on the 31st, and so she's going to... What did I say? Genealogy?
You said geology.
No, I did not.
Sorry, I'm afraid you did.
Did I? Genealogy.
Thank you.
She might throw in some geology.
She could be a rock star.
She could be, and you know, when she uncovers her roots.
She's got to do it now. So.
No, but that'll be a good one for us, I think. And she's worked in genealogy for over 30 years, so she knows of what she speaks, I think. So, and a reminder that all of our programs here at the museum, we are not tax supported in any way. All of our funding comes from grants, of which there are a few. It comes from sponsorships and donations from the public, and admission sales. So that's the only way we support. So we certainly are grateful for the donations that we get. Tonight's presentation with Mr. Glenshaw is brought to you by CCC Carroll Collision Center. So we certainly thank them for their generosity in supporting tonight's program. Mark Glenshaw, right here beside me, is an award-winning naturalist since December 2005. He has closely observed and documented the lives of great horned owls in Forest Park. We all know Forest Park up the road there. He shares his work on his blog, Forest Park Owls, as well as on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. The Owls and his work with them receives regular coverage from local and regional media, spanning the spectrum of TV, radio, print, and the web. The Owls and Mark had their first national media coverage with an appearance in 2022 on the E! Entertainment Network. I bet that was fun.
There was.
Mark does extensive outreach with the Owls, and of course, if you saw him last time he was here, it was last fall, I think, wasn't it?
August.
Last August. He gave us the saga of the family of owls in Forest Park, and that was fascinating. So maybe he can give us an update, a short update on that tonight. He also gives scores of talks across Missouri, Illinois, and beyond to a wide range of organizations and institutions. He was awarded the Citizen Scientist Award by the Academy of Science in St. Louis in 2006. Mark is a certified interpretive guide, a certified Missouri naturalist, master naturalist, and a volunteer for Forest Park Forever. A native of Washington, D.C., we won't hold that against you. And the son of an American mother and South African father. He is a dual citizen of both nations. Mark has his bachelor's degree in history with a minor in communications and journalism from Washington University in St. Louis. When not studying owls, Mark works at the University of Missouri St. Louis in the Advancement Division. And Mark's talk tonight, how to find an owl in your neighborhood, will show which owls you are most likely to see or hear, how to look for them in a safe and ethical manner, and the importance of research and collaboration. So I'm looking forward to knowing how I can find those owls in the woods behind my house. So, Mr. Glenshaw, please take it.
Thank you. Thank you, Thank you, sir, for a very kind introduction. I really want to thank the entire board, staff, volunteers of the St. Genevieve Museum and Learning Center for having me back. This is only the second time I've ever presented in St. Genevieve, and the first time was for you, so thank you so much for having me back. And most importantly, I want to thank each and every one of you for attending tonight. I definitely understand and appreciate how precious time is on a weeknight evening, so thank you for sharing part of your evening tonight to learn more about owls. And I'd like to start tonight with a quick reassurance, and this reassurance is important. I think it's important that even with Stephanie's very kind introduction still ringing in your ears, I think it's important that I reassure you that I'm the right person to be here tonight to talk to you about owls. And I say this because most of you are meeting me for the first time. And so you're noticing the horrible lack of hair on my head. And I think it's important that I reassure you that I really do study owls. And not bald eagles. Now, don't get me wrong, I love bald eagles. They're fascinating, beautiful animals, our national symbol. And this is a photo of a bald eagle that I took, not just somewhere anywhere, but in Forest Park, and in the very territory of the great horned owls that I study in Forest Park. And I've seen some pretty interesting encounters between bald eagles and great horned owls. So while I love seeing a bald eagle, it's important that I reassure you that I really concentrate my efforts, my energies on studying owls. And with that in mind, we can dive right in. The things I'm going to share with you tonight, I know that these things work. And not just in one situation, one context, one setting, but in multiple situations, multiple settings, multiple contexts. First of all, these are the methods, the tips, the procedures, even the philosophies that I use to find the owls that I study. So I know that these work with the owls that I study, and the fact that I've been studying Charles, the male great horned owl, now for 18 years, this might be enough evidence that these things work. But I'm happy to say there's even more evidence. Another thing that I do, in addition to this lecture, people will invite me to their homes, their neighborhoods, their local parks, to help them find their local owls. And I call this owl consultation. And when I do owl consultation, and I'll mention a little more about this towards the end of tonight's presentation, when I do owl consultation, I may have been in that town before, but maybe not that neighborhood, and I'm looking for owls that I have no direct experience with. But using everything I'm going to teach you tonight, I can often find owls in a place that's brand new, and that owls with owls that are brand new to me. Not only do these things work for me, but I've taught all of these things to several and a growing number of naturalists that I have mentored, all about owls. And I've been mentoring people. A mentor is a type of teacher. And I've been mentoring people about owls almost as long as I've been studying owls. And just in the last year and a half, I've gained 3 new mentees. And some people I've been mentoring for years and years. But what's interesting, all the stuff that I have learned about finding owls, it took me 2 years not to get great at finding owls, not to get good at finding owls. It took me about 2 years to get okay at finding owls. And the funny thing about mentoring people about owls is these people get really good really fast. And sometimes I think, son of a gun, how do they get so good? Oh yeah, I taught them. So it's an interesting dynamic there. So, quick show of hands, how many of you in your backyard, your local park, Yellowstone, somewhere outside of the zoo or a place like the World Bird Sanctuary, how many of you have seen an owl in the wild? Quite a number of hands, a few hands that have not gone up. If you have not seen an owl, don't feel bad. I regularly meet people in their 70s and 80s who have never seen an owl in the wild. And I always ask this question because what I'm going to say next, if you haven't seen an owl, might seem a little fishy, just to mix my animal metaphors. And that is, owls are all over the place. For one thing, owls live in almost every type of place where we live. Residential neighborhoods, cities, suburbs, rural areas. One of the funny things, I live in the city of St. Louis, the neighborhood called Dogtown, big Irish neighborhood just south of Forest Park. People see owls in Dogtown all the time. I have only seen a handful because I'm usually just down the road in Forest Park watching the owls there. But 2 Fridays ago, I just come back from Forest Park. I'm on my front stoop, taking off my boots, had a great night watching the owls, and I look up, huge great horned owl lands in the oak tree in my front yard, like 40 to 50 feet from me. So, city, suburb, rural areas where we live, owls live. Another show of hands, how many of you regularly see hawks near your home? Where you have hawks, more often than not, you're going to have owls. Hawks are the day shift, owls are the night shift. We're more on the hawk schedule, so we see more hawks than we see owls. About the only residential area where you won't find owls are really dense, urbanized areas. Downtown St. Louis, downtown Clayton, downtown Cape Girardeau, what have you. Probably not going to see owls there. And yes, you are going to see owls in parks. Big parks like Forest Park, huge parks like our state parks and state conservation areas, but also your little pocket park, your neighborhood park. It's got a field, it's got a jungle gym, it's got some trees. These are great spots to find owls. But we're still not done. Any good-sized green space can be an excellent spot for owls. Campuses, cemeteries, golf courses, greenways, green belts, these are all places to find owls. And I have seen owls in every place listed here in the St. Louis region. Central, south, north, east, west, every type of place. Not just once, but multiple times. Never mind, people say to me, hey Mark, I was playing golf near Sunset and there's an owl. Or, hey Mark, near my family farm, we've got a barn owl. So all of these places are fantastic for owls. So this is where you can find owls, but who, I'll say it again, who might you see? Well, in Illinois and Missouri, there are 8 species of owls found in both states, and it's the same 8 species. Sometimes I think it'd be nice if Illinois had one species that Missouri didn't have and vice versa. But other times I think it's kind of cool that each state has the same 8 species. So of these 8 species, 4 are found all year long and statewide. And these are the great horned owl, the barred owl, the eastern screech owl, and the barn owl. Please notice the difference in spelling and pronunciation between barred and barn. Their names are very similar. Is that Mart or Mark? No, that's Mark. If I had a nickel for every time I had to make that distinction between barn and barred, I would be in a different tax bracket. But anywhere in Missouri and Illinois, you can find these species, whether it's January or July. So that's 4 of the 8 species. 3 of the other species are migratory. They come into Illinois, they come into Missouri, and head out. Northern saw-whet owl, long-eared owl, and the short-eared owl. They'll sometimes nest here, but mostly they come in, and then they leave. So these guys are really cool to see, but you only have a window usually in which to see them. So that gives us 7 species out of 8. We have 1 semi-regular winter visitor. Does anyone want to take a good guess at what owl species that is?
Snow.
Snowy. Indeed. Make sure to add the Y to snow. It's snowy owl. You sometimes hear snow owl, but definitely want to make it snowy owl. In Illinois, being a little further north, especially as you get into central and more northern Illinois, they get snowy owls more frequently than we do in Missouri. But they'll pop up here in Missouri as well. Never mind, sometimes as far south as Texas, Carolinas, Georgia. So yes, snowy owls. Now, of these 8 species, we're going to focus on the 3 that you're most likely to see any time of the year and throughout Missouri and Illinois. Now, by concentrating on 3 species, I don't want to give the impression that, oh, ignore the other 5 species, don't bother learning about them. Not at all. I encourage you to learn anything and everything you can about owls anywhere. And there are over 250 species of owls on the planet, and they're found on every continent except the Antarctic. But if you came to me today, July 10th, and said, Mark, I want to see a short-eared owl, I'd say, ooh, I'm really sorry. You're really late. And you're really early, too. What do you mean? Well, the last short-eared owls left probably February or March, and they're not going to be back to maybe November, December, probably more like January, because that's when they come here. But whether it's today, July 10th, or January 10th, and you said, Mark, I want to see a great horned owl, a barred owl, or an eastern screech owl, okay, we got a good possibility of doing that. So these are the ones we're really going to focus on tonight. And since I study great horned owls, I sometimes get asked, well, Mark, do you like other owl species? Yeah, I love all owl species, but I'm not going to pretend that I don't have a favorite. And that's that one, the great horned owl. So this is Charles, who I've been studying for 18 years now. And gentlemen, I meant to issue a warning. Human females have very strong reactions to Charles. I'm not kidding. He gets phone numbers, he gets hotel room keys, he gets swipe right. You're never going to see an ugly great horned owl. Charles is an especially gorgeous great horned owl. And I say that objectively and subjectively. But great horned owls, objectively, are the largest resident owl in Missouri and Illinois. Only snowy owls, our occasional winter visitor, are larger owls in these 2 states. So how big? 18 to 25 inches tall. So 1.5 to just over 2 feet tall, with a 4 to 5 foot wingspan. That's how big the great horned owl is. And as you look at Charles here, what are 2 things about his physical appearance, about his body, that jump out to you? Here's things on top of his head.
Facial expression.
Facial expression. They're pretty intense. So the 2 things on their ears, the names of owls are confusing. Great horned owl, long-eared owl, short-eared owl. Well, those things on their head, none of the above. Not horns, antlers, or ears. What the heck? Now, you were introduced. This is Mark Glenshaw. If I said, hi, my name's Steve Johansson, what's going on? Those things on the top of their head are called tufts. Small groups of feathers. And about over 40% of owl species have tufts. Also with great horned owls, they have yellow eyes. In Missouri and Illinois, there are only 2 species of owls that have brown eyes. And you'll see those. Now imagine it's 10 o'clock at night, whether it's January, July, August, April, you see a large owl with tufts. Those 2 points, that's all you need to say, hey, there's a great horned owl. People will come to me and they'll say, Mark, I saw an owl. I don't know what it was. And I kind of do a decision tree with that. Was it big? Yes. Okay. Did it have tufts? Oh, we don't know what tufts are. Let's talk about tufts. Or did it have a brown head? Well, it had tufts. Great horned owl. Now, there are other things about great horned owls that we can talk about. Feather color, feather patterns, things like that. But those get a little more complex. And complex is good, but it's also, I'm a big believer to keep it simple. So you see a big owl just with tufts, that's all you need to know that it's a great horned owl. Now, another thing to look for, especially in low light or dense foliage, is this large patch of feathers on their throat. Here's Charles at a former and possibly future nest site. And that's called the gular sac. And all adult great horned owls have that. It's like they're wearing a white turtleneck or white scarf. So that's a good thing to look for. And there is a difference in size. In this photo, Charles is higher up on the left. And on the right is Charles's first mate, Sarah. And as you can see, the females are bigger. And this is not unique to great horned owls. In fact, it's found in the vast majority of the birds of prey. So owls, hawks, eagles, vultures, falcons, ospreys, the girls are bigger than the boys. Now, you can also have a big male and a small female. And Charles is a big guy, unlike me. But Sarah is huge, as big as they get. Now, there's a fancy term for this size difference. It's called reverse sexual dimorphism. Let's try this together. Reverse sexual dimorphism. Quiet there. Now, when I teach you this term, or perhaps for some of you, you're like, oh yeah, I know this term. You're going to find reverse sexual dimorphism in other animals, many amphibians, some fish, some snakes, practically nowhere in mammals. But when I teach you this term, reverse sexual dimorphism, it comes with a challenge, this kernel of knowledge. I want you to use this term. I've adapted this challenge to our current world. I want you to use this phrase, reverse sexual dimorphism, in your next Zoom thing. Whatever it might be. Work, neighborhood meeting, virtual happy hour, family discussion. Trying to throw reverse sexual dimorphism into the conversation. Now, fair question. What if you can't see the size difference? This is a photo of Sarah, that female great horned owl we just saw. And I can tell you that is Sarah because I took this photo. I saw Charles and Sarah together for over 9.5 years. But you can take my word for it, but what if you just see a great horned owl and there's not another owl next to it? Never mind, what if they are in the same tree, but one owl is closer to you and the other owl is farther away? And what if you do have a big male or a small female? Well, thankfully with great horned owls, when they hoot, there is a big difference in the male hoot and the female hoot. The male hoot, and here's Charles hooting away, the male hoot is 3 to 5, low, long, deep nose. Very much like a French horn. Now the female hoot, very different. Shorter, softer, higher notes, more of that. 6 to 9 notes. More like a clarinet or a flute. Now, when owls hoot together, a pair of owls in the same species, it's called a duet. So let's listen to a male and female great horned owl hoot together. You're going to hear the male, then the female, and they're going to go back and forth. And listen for that difference in the call. Now, proof is in the pudding, but you may have been thinking, hey, Mark, you said the females are bigger. If the male sounds like a French horn, why doesn't the female sound like a tuba or a sousaphone? The females are bigger overall, but their heads are smaller and their vocal cords are smaller, producing the higher pitched hoot. Well, let's listen to that duet again, just kind of cemented in our brains. And it's such a beautiful sound as well. Now, hearing this recording, I can say, yes, that's a male, that's a female. Occasionally, it does get a little tricky, but 98% of the time, male great horned owl sounds very different from a female. But here's another cool thing. The hoot of each individual, just like our voices, is unique to that individual. So I hear this recording, and I can say, that's a male, that's a female. Well, that's not Charles. That's not Sarah. That's not Olivia. That's not Danielle. That's not an intruding male great horned owl that we had a couple of years ago that we had a not very sympathetic name for. That's not numb nuts. But that's a male, that's a female. If I called any of you on the phone tomorrow, I would not expect any of you to answer the phone, hear my voice, and say, "Hi, Mark," because we only know each other a little bit. My mom just started 88 last month. I'm one of 6 kids. I could call my mom tomorrow. I'm going to call my mom tomorrow when I get home. Say, "Mom, home from St. Jed? Talk with great." I hope. It's still time. As soon as she hears my voice, she'll know exactly not only which one of her 6 children it is, but there's about 7 billion people on the planet just from hearing my voice. She also has caller ID, but I think that's fair at the age of 88, if not even 78. So yes, unique hoots. So that's the great horned owl. We're now going to go to the barn owl. And barn owls are good-sized owls, overlapping in size with great horned owls, but not getting quite as big as a great horned owl, 18 to 22 inches tall. And as we look at this beautiful barn owl, what are 2 things about its body that are very different from a great horned?
Face.
No touch.
No tufts. What about the face?
More pronounced.
Well, they all have a round facial disc, but it varies between
Eye color.
no tufts, round Charlie Brown head, or Mark Glenshaw head, and brown eyes. Now, again, it's 10 o'clock at night. You see a big owl, you don't see eye color, feather patterns, feather color, but it's a big owl with no tufts. That's all you need to say, "Hey, I saw a barred owl." That's how simple it can be. Now the name barred owl, notice it's R-E-D. I once had someone say, "Oh no, it's B-A-R-D, it's a Shakespeare reference." I said, "That's a nice thought," and Shakespeare did reference owls quite a bit in his plays and sonnets. But barred refers to the feather pattern. Horizontal bars of brown and white on their back and side, and as you'll see in other pictures, vertical bars on their chest. So that's what their name comes from. And barred owls have a very famous call. Here you can see the vertical bars on the chest.
Yeah.
They have a famous call. I'm sure some of you have heard it, some of you can imitate it, and some of you know the phrase we give it, the mnemonic phrase that we give it. But I want not to if you haven't heard the call, if you don't know the mnemonic phrase, I want you to kind of be fresh to this. So let's listen to the call, and then I'm going to give you the phrase. And we translate that to, "Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all?" Now that we've got the phrase in print and in our ears and our brains, let's listen to the call again, and we'll see that's a really good phrase to remember it. Now what we just heard there was a female. There is a difference between the male call and the female call of a barred owl, but unlike the big difference with great horned owl, male and female, it's a pretty small difference between a male and female barred owl. And most owls, there's not a big difference between male and female. So a female, which you've now heard twice, has a lot of vibrato, sort of a tremolo effect. The male, on the other hand, is much more cut and dry. Who cooks for you, who cooks for you all? Good night. So let's listen to the male call. Instead of hello, it's hello. Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you? So let's listen to that male call again. So much more cut and and dry. Now, I have much less experience with barred owls than I do with great horned owls, but it's only the past few years that I've been able to listen to pairs of barred owls and have been able to say, okay, that was a female, that was a male. It's much harder. Great horned owls, male, female. Usually that quick. Sometimes not though. Now, barred owls, they do some things a little differently. They're well known for calling during the day, regularly calling during the day. 10 a.m., lunchtime, 2 o'clock. They're not waiting for sunset. They're not waiting for darkness. They will call. I remember when I first heard about this, I said, what? And then I've experienced it myself. I've had many people tell me this. I've read it in many places. They will do that. So if you hear a barred owl calling, and it's high noon, not unusual. Here, from this photo, we can see on the back of the owl, those alternating brown and white bars. Now, all owls have a wide range of vocalizations. Sometimes people say, well, what do you mean? Don't they just hoot? And I say, well, do you just talk? Do you not also laugh, beckon, bellow, cajole, whisper, hiss? Barred owls, however, check out in line twice for vocalizations, and their duets can be really intense, often compared to monkeys. People often use the word caterwauling to describe this. Now, I'm going to play you one of these calls, so what you're hearing may sound like 3, 4, 5, 6 barred owls. It's 2. So if you hear that, know the howler monkeys have not escaped from the zoo. Know the patients have not escaped from the mental asylum. You're just hearing a very intense barred owl duet. Let's hear that again. And always amazing to hear that happen. Now, our next owl, can't mistake it for a great horned owl or a barred owl. It's our last owl, and it's our least owl, but only in size. It's not the least important. The eastern screech owl, much smaller, 6 to 8 inches tall. And eastern screech owls have something that very few owl species have. They come in different colors. And these different colors are called color morphs or phases. And this is one of 3. This is a gray phase eastern screech owl, but they also come in red and brown. And we're going to see all 3. But as we look at that eastern screech owl, it reminds us a bit of a great horned owl. What are 2 things about it that it has in common with the great horned owl? Tufts.
Eyes.
Yellow eyes, exactly. It's one way I often describe screech owls, eastern, western, whiskered screech owls, is they look just like great horned owls that have been left in the dryer too long, and they just shrunk. Proportions are exactly the same. So, the name eastern screech owl, I think, could use some work. I'm going to let you guys decide for yourselves. They have not 1, but 2 main calls. I don't think either of them really fits the word screech. And here's a beautiful red phase eastern screech owl sleeping away. So one of the calls is a high-pitched whistling whinny. It sounds like the world's smallest horse. And this is used to declare territory and defend territory. All owls are very territorial. So let's listen to this call, and would you apply the word screech to it? Sounds like a horse. Sounds like a horse. So yeah, I want to call that a screech. Let's hear that again. Eastern screech owl. Well, the second call is also quite different. It's more of a monotone trill. And this is a beautiful brown-faced eastern screech owl, so you see how different those colors are. And the first time I heard this call was on a recording, and someone said, Mark, this is an eastern screech owl's call. Well, one of its calls. If someone had said, Mark, I'm going to play you a call, and I'm going to have you take your best educated guess on what type of animal it is, I would not have said owl. I'm going to play you a call, and I'll tell you what I would have called it. And this call is used for mates calling to each other and parents calling to their young. So it's a monotone shrill. If someone said, Mark, what is that call? I would have said frog or toad. And I see some nods as well. Not a bird, not an owl. Let's listen to it once more. So that's the eastern screech owl. Now you might be saying, well, who would you name a screech owl? I would name the barn owl screech owl. Barn owl, that name is very accurate, I should say, because they are quite active often in barns and other human buildings. But man, their call, really screechy. Hold on to your hats, it's pretty intense. Yeah,
It's a screech owl.
It's a screech owl. But it is also a barn. So, yeah, amazing different calls. And again, all of these owls have a wide variety of calls. With great horned owls, they have chitters and squawks and barking notes. I've never heard barking in 18 years. Charles will sometimes hoot with his mouth full of prey. And instead of you get a more comic sounds like a muted trumpet or something. The vocalizations are amazing. Now, when you're thinking about looking for owls, you also want to think about what you're going to wear and what you're going to bring with you. Sometimes people get a little freaked out and they're like, oh, I saw this great photo of an owl, and you probably needed this amazing camera and this amazing lens, and to find the owl, you need these amazing binoculars. I always say, start with what you have. Start slowly. If you get more serious, you can hopefully upgrade. I started with a $40 pair of binoculars that my girlfriend dug out of her basement, saying, yeah, I think I have some binoculars somewhere. My first camera didn't belong to me, it belonged to my job. I asked my boss, hey boss, can I borrow the camera? She said, you break it, you bought it. As I got more serious, I upgraded binoculars, got my own camera, got better lenses, things like that. So don't worry, don't think, oh, I gotta spend a lot of money. Start with what you have. Clothing, that is very important to think seriously about. You want to wear dark, muted colors. You don't want to wear fur or even fake fur. People have been attacked by owls wearing fur. And you want to be prepared for the weather so that you're comfortable and that you're safe. I go out to study owls in triple-digit weather and single-digit weather. And I'm ready to adjust up or down. But dark muted colors, very important to help you minimize your presence with the owls. So you're seeing me here tonight, we're the proper attire to present for this esteemed institution for you lovely people. Just want to reassure you this is not what I wear when I go out to study the owls. This is what I look like when I go out to study the owls. Dark muted colors, you notice me wearing a bright white shirt or jacket, not dress shoes, but boots, backpack, cameras, binoculars, and yes, you see my license plate? That's my car. It's right at the back. Now, we have sharp-eyed birders, naturalists, gardeners, other observant people here. You probably notice that the facial hair in the photo doesn't match the very recently, second time today, shaven face in front of you. What you're seeing in the photo is winter plumage. And what you have here tonight, summer plumage. And in the May, I shaved that down to a beard, that beard down to a goatee, creating spring plumage. So, need to have me back in October or something, you can do the full beard vet. So, now that was taken a few Januaries ago, so I've got all the stuff that you see on me, but guess what? I got another pair of gloves. I've got a balaclava, a face mask in my jacket pocket. I've got a thermos of hot chocolate or tea in my bag, ready to grab. Last night, I was out in the Owls, out in the rain. I had an umbrella, I had my big boots on, I had 2 bottles of water and a bottle of Gatorade, ready for the weather. Because if you're miserable, you're not going to be out there as long, and you're not going to be able to see as much cool stuff. So be prepared for the weather, and yes, limit your presence with the owls. Timing. Timing is very key. There are 3 times a day that are the best to find the owls. And that can be the middle of the night, around sunrise, and about an hour before sunset. And of these 3, an hour before sunset is generally the best one. But if you are a night owl, if your dog needs a midnight walk, or you need a midnight walk yourself, keep your eyes peeled. If you are an early bird, around sunset, sunrise is a great time to see owls, but an hour before sunset, for the 3 species, and most of the species we're looking at, this is the best time, because this is when the owls are starting to wake up, but they're still in one place. They haven't flown off yet, and you've got some light with which to work. So this is a photo of Charles in the summer of 2019, literally right at sunset, and I'd been out there for about an hour before that. So that's the best time to go. And to find the owls in the tree, you don't want to look for a perfectly visible owl, suitable for framing, nothing around it. You're not going to see that. Instead, you want to look for a shape. And I'll never forget a tour I led years ago where a lady said, a really cool thing. So this is the shape you want to look for, a conical vertical shape. Because this lady, when she saw Charles, she said, oh my gosh, he looks like a big pine cone. I said, yes, brilliant, write that down. That's the shape that you want to look for. If you look at a tree, trees do all sorts of amazing things. Some that are staring us in the face, we don't even realize, but it's happening all the time. Most trees, doesn't matter the size of the trees, their branches go out horizontally, or at an angle up, an angle down. Well, the owls do everything standing up nice and tall. So you want to look for that pine cone shape in contrast to the horizontal branch or the angular branch, whether the angle is up or down. Now, if it's on a vertical branch, well, best of luck, but that will happen sometimes. But for example, here's Charles, well after sunset. This is me following him out hunting on a very sharp downward angular branch, perfectly silhouetted. Now, here's a totally different situation. This next photo, Charles is on a horizontal branch. There's no silhouette, but once again, that pine cone shape is boom, jumping out at you. And again, with great horned owls, adult great horned owls, look for the gular sac, the white patch of feathers on their throat. So even surrounded by leaves on that cottonwood several summers ago, his shape is really, really helpful. So I'm not looking for an owl. You shouldn't be looking for an owl. Look for the big pine cone. Where do you look in the trees? Everywhere. High and low. I like showing this picture. This is a spot that Charles began to use in the fall of 2016. It took me 1, 2, 3 days to find him. And he was hooting. So I knew he was in an area roughly 8 times the size of this row. And I could not find him. Why? Because I was looking here and not, oh my gosh, at eye level. But notice how there's no silhouette. He's right up against the trunk of that tree. He's a huge male great horned owl. That tree is 3 or 4 times the width of his body. but he was literally at eye level. And I'm 5'8", and that's on a good day. You know, with the wind from the northeast and the sun hitting me from that, I'm only 5'8". But he was both at eye level. So high and low, they'll be close to the trunk, they'll be far away from the trunk. And as I began to spend more time studying wildlife, I've developed a few phrases. One of them, whether it's an owl or anything else, is to find an animal, it's all about the ankle. We've all experienced it. Someone says, oh wow, look at that raccoon. Where? And then you move your feet from here to there. Or someone says, oh wow, look at that great blue heron. Where? And then you move your head from there to, oh yeah, I see the great blue heron. So the angles can be literally matters of inches difference. So you have to work the angles. You can't look at a big tree from one angle and say, oh, I don't see anyone, and just move on. This is Charles in a pine tree we began to use in the summer of 2019. He had never used this tree before. The first time he used it, I happened to see him perfectly from my first angle. I was really lucky. Well, Charles said, okay, you got lucky. That summer, he used at least 5 to 6 different spots in that tree. And I had to work the angles and learn those spots. So, again, it's all about the angle. So, I encourage you to memorize the tree and memorize the angle. And we all learn things in different ways. Some people are more visual, some people are more auditory, some people are more text. Whatever works for you, use that method. One thing I do recommend, and it's something I began to do very early on, no one had suggested it to me, I never read it in the book, but I do suggest naming the trees. Name them however you want, 1, 2, 3. I use very boring names, I use silly names, I use creative names. Some of my names refer to literature, history, politics, films. Any Stephen King fans here? We have the Overlook Hotel tree, the Hotel The Shining. But naming the trees can be very helpful, because if you're like, oh, they're in a pine, I see 40 pines. Or, you know, they're in that tree, you know that one, it has bark and branches. Is this helping? No. So, for example, the people that I mentor, I've taught them these tree names. And it's really helpful. Because any of us can see one of the owls, and we're in a Facebook message group together. Last night, Charles was in the double barrel tree. That's the cottonwood. Well, right in that immediate area, in a half mile, there's maybe 80 cottonwoods. And in Forest Park's almost 1,300 acres, approximately 47,000 trees. But once I said the double barrel tree, I know exactly what tree that is. So all of these things are a gradual process, but they're really going to help. Don't expect to see all or even most of the owl. Here's Charles last summer with maybe 40% of his body visible. You can't see the cooler sack, you can't see his face, you can't see his bill, you can't see his tufts, but you can see him. So again, you're looking for the shape. If you're looking for the perfect owl visual, you're not going to see him. Be prepared. I want to underline this for the owls to mix it up. They're going to use different spots, often different spots from season to season. You think that's tough? They will use different spots in the same season. And not 5, but 15 to 20 sometimes. So, as you get better at finding them, since they mix it up, be wary, be careful of overlooking them. And here's another tough thing about seasonal spots. A season arrives and hangs out for 3 to 4 months. And then goes away for another 8 to 9 months. And we all get rusty. And owls will not send you an email or put out a press release saying, Anita, it's June 14th. We're going to the summer spots. They're just going to move when they want to. This is Charles 2 winters ago, early in the winter. And I got to the park, and I looked at this tree, the middle tree. It's between two nest trees. And I looked briefly at that tree and continued on. I went to a bunch of other spots we've been using recently, some other winter spots, wasn't finding them. Came back to this general area, a little concerned, and I heard Charles too. And I just closed my eyes. I said, Mark, did you really look in the middle tree, especially in some of his winter spots? No, sir. I walked right past him. And again, they don't send out a press release. So, as you get better at following them, another phrase I encourage you to use, a maxim, an aphorism, a mantra, is this: open eyes, open ears, open mind. Be open to new possibilities. This phrase came blazing into my head at bullet train speed on October 28th, 2007. Easy date for me to remember, my girlfriend Wendy's birthday. And on this date, I've been studying the owls for a little under 2 years, and I've learned a lot about them. But on this day, I was kind of being lazy. And Charles was in this typical spot, and was in that typical spot. Well, I missed, how do I put this politely, getting crapped on by Charles by about 2 to 3 feet. Charles was right above me, and he dropped some droppings. And if I'd taken another step and a half, ta-da, and that phrase, boom, open eyes, open ears, open mind, came blasting into my head. Your mouth?
Keep it
You
shut.
might want to keep it shut. So they're going to mix it up on you. If these owls and other owls, if they kept me and my friends and mentees any more on our toes, we'd be working for a ballet company. That's how challenging it can be, but also a lot of fun. So let's look at examples of all of this. In this photo, the owl higher up on the right, much closer to the trunk, is Charles's third mate, Samantha. Same tree, but much further away from the trunk, is Charles. And I found one of them first, and as I was working the angle, maybe to get a better angle, I realized, oh my gosh, they're both there. And then I worked the angle some more so I could see them both at the same time. But again, totally different positions in the tree, proximity to the trunk, and height. Here is Sarah in a tree that sadly, like her, is no more. Massive cottonwood. And here's Charles in the same tree on a different day in a totally different spot in the tree. I had to work the angles both of those days to see one owl in the same tree. This tree fell down several years ago. I was very sad to see it go, but that tree could be really tricky to find the owls. I did a lot of angle working on that tree. Here is Charles high up in the right, and in the very same tree, this is the Overlook Hotel tree, there is Samantha. This is the the summer of 2018. The Overlook Hotel tree I named pretty early on, and this is a tree that's been used by multiple owls in many different seasons, in many different spots. Summer of 2018, I had never seen it used as much in the summer as that year, or since that year. So some of these spots will come and be used a lot, and then go. There's a summer spot that was used from 2006 until 2015. It has barely been touched in the last 9 years, in any season. So that year, being used so much in the summer for the first time, I had to learn new angles. Here's Charles in a tree he just used last week, same branch. But this is Charles in late summer, early fall 2020. And one of the coolest things about studying owls is also one of the most challenging things. And that is every night is different and unique. Weather, color, light, how you feel, what you had for lunch. Here's Charles in this branch of the double aught tree. And here's Charles in the same branch of the same tree on a totally different weather day. He looks totally totally different. Here's Charles in Wendy's tree last summer, and the sun was popping out and popping in behind clouds, and it was behind clouds, and 4 minutes later, same branch, same tree, same owl, the sun came out again, and it was completely different. Be prepared for you to misidentify an owl. I've had more than a few times to say, oh, there's Charles and there's Sarah. Oh, that was Charles. That was Sarah. Again, all these different factors. Light, color, angle, how you're feeling. Here is Charles and his second most recent mate, Tess, last summer. Here is Tess, here is Charles, in the recently named Cross Branch tree. And you can see both pretty well here. But what happens if you change the angle? You can still see them, but much, much less of that. Same birds, same trees, same day, minutes apart, different angle. Gives you totally different impressions of them. Now, you never underestimate the camouflage. There is an owl in this photo. Remember the cooler sack? That is Samantha in the fall of 2018. The camouflage is not just color, but it's also texture. It's also behavioral. Not only are the owls really good at imitating branches, leaves, bark, rocks, they're also really good at imitating statues. And they're not going to wave to you and say, hey, how you doing? Over here, over there. So the camouflage, the second you underestimate it, you're going to walk right past them. And even knowing how challenging it can be tough to find them. For example, fall of 2019, I heard Charles calling from an area he had been using quite a bit that fall. And it took me 20 minutes to get that angle on it. You can just see the Gular sack. Now when owls hoot, it's a full body motion. We can stand or sit here and say hello, good evening, barely move our lips. But when he hoots, he leans forward. So once he hooted, I could see much more of him. Now once I found him and I knew that tree and I knew the area, I thought, okay, if I work the angle, maybe I can find a different, better angle on Charles. And I did, but not that much better. And sometimes it's not about finding the best angle, but the least worst angle. That's the least worst I could get that night. Okay.
These night or day?
So this is right around sunset. So the owls are waking up, stretching, grooming, calling, becoming more active. But they will also be sleeping, and sometimes they'll get quite active. And like many of us, did I do this morning? No, I just turned it off. They hit the snooze button and go back to sleep. Now what if you have no silhouette? Here's Charles. This is another low spot, just a tree right next to the one you saw in the earlier photo. Well, I was about 20 to 30 feet from Charles. I have a 100 to 400 millimeter lens, telephoto zoom lens. This is Charles with my lens all the way out at 400 millimeters, only 20 to 30 feet away. But look at the size of that tree. That tree is at least twice its width. Well, here's Charles at 100 millimeters. What the heck are you talking about? Well, here is a 200 millimeters, then 300, and then back to 4. Perfect imitation of that tree bark. Texture, behavior, color. Now, as you work more and more on this, fun things can happen. This low spot and the other low spot, I know angles to find them in this spot while I'm driving my car. 20 mile per hour owl spotting in a spot that well camouflaged. So a friend and mentee of mine recently said, yeah, I'm not there yet. I said, don't worry. I said, I'm still working on it. But yeah, that spot I can find him from the road while driving. Now, a note of caution, but also consolation. Everything starts to look like an owl. And the more you want to see owls, the more everything else starts to look for owls. You're going to have false positives, and not just one type of false positives, many. Squirrel nests, conical, vertical, up in a tree, brownish gray, looks like an owl. I've had to memorize squirrel nests. They're not the only type of nest. Wasp, hornet nests, conical, vertical, up in a tree, looks like an owl. I've had to memorize certain hornet nests. One near two trees that the owls use quite a bit was new to us this winter. I can't tell you how many times we went, it's a wasp nest. Okay, not a big deal. The way certain branches are shaped and curved, like this branch on a sweet gum. In the summer of 2021, Charles flew towards this tree, and I was with two of my new owl mentees at the time. They've now been studying owls for over 3.5 years, Aaron and Matt. And we went to follow Charles, and as we went up that way, I told them about this branch. I said, yeah, there's this branch up here. It looks just like the great one owl. And both of them said, oh, I see Charles. No, sorry, that's the branch I just told you about, but don't feel bad. That's how hard it can be. Unfortunately, also some man-made things will look like owls. Plastic bag, caught up in a tree. Happens far too often, has that owl shape. Here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to look at something and just with your own eyes and say, no, that's not an owl. You want to double check with your binoculars. You want to make sure. If it's not an owl, no big deal. This happens to everyone, I promise you that. What you don't want to do is just say, not an owl, and walk off. Summer of 2022, Charles and his mate Sophie had 2 babies that winter, and we had to learn some new trees that those owls they were using. Super cute little guys. So one day I'm looking at one of these trees, and I see a shape. No, that's not an owl. You start to walk off. Mark, what do you tell everyone to do? Look up your binoculars. And I go back to that angle, and I look. Oh my gosh, it's one of the babies. It's one of the owlets. And the owlet was right up against the trunk of the tree. And there's an owlet. I'm so excited, almost kicking myself that I almost missed the owlet. And I'm watching the owlet, and right next to it, the bark of the tree grows eyes. It was the second owlet. And I was seconds away from walking right past them and saying, nope, not an owlet. Double check with your binoculars. And again, if it's not an owl, no harm, no foul if it's no owl. Other things will help you find owls. Things you might expect, things you might not. You want to look up and listen for the owls, but you also want to look up and listen for warning calls from birds and mammals and harassing behaviors of other birds and small mammals. Here's Charles getting the business from American crows. These warning calls and harassment behaviors are grouped under an umbrella behavior called mobbing. It has nothing to do with organized crime, the Cosa Nostra, nothing like that. But mobbing is a great way to find not just owls, but other predators. Hawk, snake, your neighbor's cat. I come out of my hotel about an hour and a half ago, taking my stuff to my car to come here and present. I hear warning calls, and I'm like, probably not an owl. It's pretty early. Oh, red-tailed or red-shouldered hawk. Well, the angle wasn't quite right to get the ID. Heard those calls, turned my head, boom, there was a hawk. Now, I want you guys to close your eyes, everyone. You're not closing your eyes, I'd like you to see. Please close your eyes. I want you to listen to some of these calls. Hear that single note? Anyone recognize that? Does it sound familiar? That you have heard that before. Well, this is a warning call of an American robin. You can open your eyes now, and you can see why they're making warning calls. This is Charles, and he is eating an American robin that he just caught. And these robins were calling before he killed their friend Fred or Steve or Ethel. There he is, going down part of the wing. And these warning calls, this mobbing behavior is serious stuff. This is not a game of tag. This is serious life and death stuff. So mobbing, warning calls, harassment behaviors, great way to find predators. A few years ago, my girlfriend joined me when I was doing a lecture in Marion, Illinois. Get out of the car, hear really intense squirrel warning calls. And I listen, I'm analyzing, I'm about to open my mouth and form the words, oh, I bet it's the neighbor's cat. Here comes the neighbor's cat. So you can't depend on mobbing, you ignore it at your peril. Mobbing will be very helpful. And you also want to look down for owl evidence. I mentioned that they have droppings. Yes, they have droppings. Their droppings are bright white, often looks like whitewash paint. So it's often referred to as whitewash. So if you see droppings, look up. If no one's there, make a note of that spot. There's another type of owl evidence. They're pellets. Now some of you know what owl pellets are. Some of you have probably even dissected owl pellets. But some of you are probably like me back when I started this, and you're saying, what's a pellet? Well, that is a pellet. All the things the owls cannot digest. Fur, bones, feathers, insect exoskeletons, even seeds, undigested by the owl, and now undigested by the animal the owl ate, and undigested again by the owl. If you think about it, it's kind of a mirror image of refried beans. All these things get compacted, thank you very much, get compacted into this pellet-like shape and then ejected out of their mouth. So if you find a pellet on the ground, look up. If an owl isn't there, make a note of that spot. Will you sometimes see pellets and whitewash together? Yeah. If you see a lot of pellets, a lot of whitewash, and especially a lot of both together, you know that's a spot where that owl has been spending a lot of time. So definitely look down as well. You also want to listen for the owls. And one thing that comes up, people will say, Mark, I hear owls, or one owl all the time, but I can't find them. Now, this is the most technical, complex, challenging part of tonight's talk. If you hear them that way, go that way. And if you hear them this way, go this way. And if they go from that way to this way, go from that way to this way. If you hear an owl calling, oh my gosh, that is so much information. It's giving you a vector, a distance, and a direction. That is a lot of information. My friends and I prefer to find the owls with our eyes. There are nights we are begging for mobbing, begging for a hoot, because we know how much information that can provide. Now, it's decreased, I'm happy to say, but I have had seemingly educated adults over the age of 25 come to me and say, Mark, I hear these owls, but I can't find them. Well, I've learned that I need to ask a follow-up question. Do you go looking for the owls? Well, no. Still haven't found Bigfoot. Why? I'm not looking for it. Oh wait, it also doesn't exist. So yeah, you do have to, journey of 1,000 miles, it does take that first step. So, through this, and even before you go looking for owls, there's some key things to think about before you take your first step in looking for owls. Ethical considerations and other things. when you observe and document and collaborate with about wildlife, the ethical side is very important. And the most important thing about being with an animal in the wild is the animal's welfare. That's the most important consideration. It's not about you seeing the animal. It's not about you getting a photo of the animal or a better photo. It's about the animal's health, well-being, stress levels, things like that. Because whether it's your backyard, you're paying the mortgage, paying the rent, it's in your local park, you're paying the taxes, when you're with that wild animal, you are in that animal's home. This is a photo of Sarah in April of 2015 feeding the two babies that they had that year, Grace and Harold. I'm watching her do a very important behavior. Those owls depend on the food from their mom. They don't get enough food, they're going to die. If I'm disturbing them, they're not going to get fed or get fed enough. I'm watching them from a close distance, but a very safe, careful distance. I'm wearing dark, muted colors. My keys are wrapped in a rag, so I don't jangle as much. Forest Park has 15.5 million visitors every year. Does anybody know the population of this area? Around 6. And people come to Forest Park and do a million different things, but no matter what we do in Forest Park, we all finish our time the same way. We pack up and we go home. When you're with an animal, you're in its home. We all need to be good guests. So a big question that comes up is, how close is too close? Owls can be tricky. We all have that voice in our heads, conscious Jimmy Crickets. Socrates refers to it as his inner daemon. If you're asking yourself, am I too close? You probably are too close. If you're having that discussion with yourself, you're probably too close. Owls get tricky because owls will often stand their ground. They don't move. And you want to err on the side of caution, because people will say, oh, I saw this owl, and it just kept letting me get closer and closer. Well, does that mean it was comfortable and fine and happy-go-lucky? I met a bunch of you folks for the first time tonight. What did we do? We shook hands. Proper greeting and distance for our culture, for our context. If I give you a big hug and kiss you 1, 2, 3 times on the cheek, you would have been thinking, is he French? Is he Russian? Is he just weird? Or just too friendly? So just because they haven't moved doesn't mean that they're not disturbed, that they're not stressed. So another question, should you share the owl's location? And if so, how? In general, done carefully, done ethically, I think it's okay to share the owl's location done in the right way. I'm not from Missouri, living here next month will make it 29 years. I've come to respect the spirit and the ethos of the show me state. With owls, I think it's best to say to other people, if you show me that you're serious and come out in person, I will show you where the owls are. I'm not going to say the corner of 29th and Maple or by the swing set in Smith Park. You need to invest some time and effort. I will invest time and effort and show you. People ask me all the time, Mark, where are the owls in Forest Park? I lead tours called Owl Prowls. I average about 70 a year. I did 96 in 2021. You show me you're serious, I will show you chapter and verse, soup to nuts. Now, as always, err on the side of caution. If you don't see them well, that's fine. If you don't get a good photo, that's fine. You can go home saying, okay, I erred on the side of caution. Now, here's Sarah in 2012 with their 2 babies. What if you have a nest? Stand even further away from the nest. Here is this nest in 2012 This is from about 50 yards away. My camera is at 400 millimeters. Here's the same nest, different female, different babies in 2020. I'm from the same distance. That photo is very cropped after the fact. You don't want to stress out the parents or the owls, and you don't want to have an angry female owl. Mother owls are very aggressive, whether it's a tiny little eastern screech owl or a huge great horned owl. So you don't want to stress them out, you don't want to distract them, you want to be extra careful with the nest. You know, if I'm 30 feet from Charles, I'll be 30, 40, 50 yards away from the nest at a minimum. So I want to show you an example of this, but I also want to talk about learning non-moving signs of disturbance. This is Tess. Very early on, and I was very proud of my mentees, they noticed something that I noticed, that we would first see Tess, and we would get that stare, that glare. Does she look very happy? No. And I said to myself, and I said, and they were finishing my sentence, we have to take our time with her. We would find Tess, hi Tess, take a photo, take a quick video, leave. Gradually, she got used to us, we got used to her. She was a very different female. We took our time with her. But her body language is screaming out that I'm not really happy. You build up your familiarity with them and theirs with you very slowly. Again, think about greeting a family member, greeting a friend, greeting a complete stranger. You behave differently. Reach out to folks and listen to folks that know more than you. If you're not sure if what you're doing is right, ask. If someone who knows more than you says, hey, you're too close, you should be using flash, or things like that, listen to them. So an example of all these things is best told with two photos. On December 24th, 2021, here's Charles. And this is my photo of Charles. And you can see he's sleeping, he's relaxed. You can see the angle of the photo, that you can tell I was a decent, healthy distance from Charles. Well, the next morning, Christmas Day, I woke up and logged on to Facebook, and I saw a post on a big Missouri birding Facebook group called Missouri Birders, 12,000 members. And this guy's post was so exciting. He said, oh, I've heard about this owl in Forest Park. I've never seen him. I finally got to see him. I'm so excited to finally see Charles. And I looked at his photo. Does Charles look relaxed? Does he look comfortable? Where's that guy taking that photo from? Very close and right underneath him. Charles' body language is saying, get out of my face, space, you name it. I was very happy to see this. Had to take a deep breath. I thought, I'm not going to comment on this guy's photo publicly. He's excited. I want to teach him, but I don't want to destroy his excitement. So I messaged him privately. I explained who I am and what I do. I never expected him to be like, oh yes, the owl man. So hi, instead of this guy, blah, blah, blah. You were too close. You were just totally excited, but doing the wrong thing in your excitement. To this gentleman's credit, he wrote me back right away. He said, Mark, yes, I have heard of you, and I completely understand what you're talking about. I am embarrassed beyond my ability to express myself that I was such a negative presence to Charles. I was with a friend of mine. I'm going to tell my friend what we did wrong, how much we did wrong. We're not going to do this again. I'm very sorry. This guy has become a fantastic bird photographer. And the birds he photographs are happy and calm and unstressed. This guy is so nice. As I was revising this talk about a year ago, I asked him, I said, do you mind if I share one of your photos from that day? He said, Mark, I would be honored if you embarrassed me in public. Now notice how I haven't used his name. Now, the social security number. So, a good teachable moment. It was one of those, you know, okay, you can see the difference. Good learning moment, good teachable moment.
Could you back up one?
Yeah, sure.
Do the relaxed one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that. I mean, you know, just imagine someone taking your photo, and then take another step, and another step. I mean, your shoulders just start to lean back. Yeah, some people hate that their photo taken. So yeah, totally different. So, will Charles give me a glare? Yeah, that's a way that an owl lets you know they're unhappy with you. Last winter, 2 winters ago, pardon me, I was giving a talk in the evening, and I had just enough time between work and my talk that I was able to stop by and see Charles. Not this photo, but same expression. When I first look at him, he's glaring at me. I'm like, whoa. In those situations, I go away. I give him 5. If I come back and he's still uncomfortable, I give him maybe another 10. Well, that day I went back and he was, but for whatever reason, he just didn't like me. At that time, at that space.
That's a cool house.
Yeah.
This was, this hollow branch was used as a nest in 2011, 2014, pardon me, 2011, 2013, 2014, and 2015. And that day, Charles was not happy. So this is that body language is one way. There is a much, much worse way for an owl to tell you that they're not happy with you. And that's getting attacked by an owl. And you don't want to get attacked by an owl, even an eastern screech owl, never mind a great horned owl. This is a photo from one of the best books on owls, on great horned owls, published in the 1960s, still a seminal work, World of the Great Horned Owl by Austin and Holt. These were fully permitted, trained, licensed, you name it, U.S. Fish and Wildlife biologists. They purposely, I'll rephrase that, they were going up to this owl's nest to band babies, count eggs, important scientific work, they had the training. Notice how he's wearing a helmet? He's not just wearing clothes to keep him warm, he's wearing basically body armor. That's a female great horned owl attacking him. Girls are bigger than boys. One scientist described the impact of a female great horned owl, said it was like being clubbed and stabbed all at once. So, yeah, respect is good. Most important for them, your own skin is good is important as well. There are some other things to think about. The legal side. You have to be able to answer the question in a positive manner. Should I be here at this place at this time of day? Forest Park has a curfew between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Some parks have a curfew sunset to sunrise. A friend of mine has been studying the same female great horned owl in a park with a sunset sunrise curfew in North St. Louis County. She's been studying that female for 13 years. She had to get a special permit so she could be there after sunset. Well, that's a park. What if it's private property? Have to have permission. Very clear, if not written, permission. So you want to be thinking about these things. This is Charles in front of an almost full moon a couple of years ago. You find an owl. You've done all this work, now what? Well, the next thing you want to do is so important, I'm going to say it 3 times. Document, document, document. Document the day, the time, the location, and what type of owl. This is, I have to double check my records, but this is Charles in a sweet gum tree in February of 2024. And this tree is not named, but just off the top of my head, I can tell you that much. If you get that information, it's going to help you and it's going to help other people help you more about the owls. People will come to me and they'll say, Mark, I saw a barn owl on July 17th in this part of Forest Park or this part of our neighborhood or whatever. Cool. But when people come to me and they say, oh, I saw an owl, and let's see, the Cardinals were in a doubleheader with the Twins, and the owl kind of looked like this Cocker Spaniel I had during the second Nixon administration.
Yeah, right.
Not very helpful information, or almost no information. So how do you document it? Whatever worked for you. If you can draw, draw. If you're fast hand at writing, write it down. Take photos, take videos, take audio. I have horribly slow handwriting. I take lots of photos, take lots of videos. This is just a screenshot of a portion of one day's footage of mine. I take two types of videos. Videos of the owls, watching them, see their behavior. And I am so bad at taking notes, but I flip my camera to video mode and record audio notes on my camera, talking to my camera. So whatever works for you. Now, fair question. What if you don't know what type of owl it is? You can identify the call, you hear the call, but you don't see the owl. You still want to document daytime and location, get those key facts down, but also note your impressions of the owl. Its size, its coloration, tufts, no tufts, its vocalizations. And with vocalizations, try to compare it to something that's an objective comparison. Remember when I played the calls with great horn owls, the male sounds like a French horn, female sounds like a clarinet or a flute. All of you could hear those sounds and could compare. Yes, that sounds like a French horn, or no, maybe not, but it does help. People will come to me and say, Mark, I heard this owl went, ooh. And someone else will say, Mark, I heard this owl went, ooh. And the third person will say, Mark, I heard this owl went, ooh. And I'm trying to be helpful, but there's two things I don't know. How good is your memory for sound? And how good is your mouth at recreating sound? I don't know. But if you said, Mark, I heard this owl, and it sounded like a small, tiny, in fact, not just small, but tiny horse. Oh, okay, yeah. Eastern screech owl. Or I heard this owl. What's the one with the who cooks for you all? It's the barn owl. Those impressions can be very, very helpful. So you document these things, and then a whole other process begins. You hit the books. The research side of this is very important. This is the first book on owls that I own. The first night that I saw Charles and Sarah, an amazing first sighting. Hooted together, beautiful duet. They flew several times. One of them still had a cherry on top moment to provide, and that is when one of the owls chased a great blue heron, which I later learned that great horned owls eat.
What?
Amazing first sighting. Totally blew my mind. I had bought this book at a library book sale a few years earlier, pulled it off the shelf that night, read about 80% of it. But I didn't stop with that book. I have a few more since then. I now have over 50 books on owls. Because I already knew as a naturalist, anytime you study anything in nature, you have to do the homework, you have to do the field work. You've got to sit in your favorite chair and learn the facts inside and out. What I'm sharing with you tonight is not only from my field work, but not 20 minutes on Wikipedia. It's from reading. And what's great is that each type of work helps and inspires the other type of work. To this day, I see owl behavior that makes me say, what the heck was going on there? I don't know. I'm going to keep doing my research. And then I'll be doing my research and learning a new fact or getting a different understanding on something I thought I knew pretty well. And my feet will get itchy because, I want to go out to the field and apply this knowledge. So doing all of these things interact, and I really want to encourage you to use your libraries. All these books that I bought, I didn't go out and buy them right away. I checked them out many, many times from libraries, finding out, hey, what are the books that I really need to have at arm's reach? Oh, I should also return the books to the libraries. Yes, this is a two-step process. And what are the books I don't need to own? Now, when you think of libraries, you might think of just your local library, but use all the libraries available to you. Ask your library, wherever you live, ask them this key phrase. Ask them about library reciprocity. A fancy way of saying, what other libraries are we connected to, and can we get books from those other libraries, and if so, how? Don't be shy about using academic libraries. Down the road, further up the road, you can often walk into a college or university and use their library. You may not be able to check out. Ask them, they might have some, okay, if you pay X amount, you can do that for a year. I also want to encourage you to talk to the staff. Libraries can be a little intimidating. Staff are there to help. And if you're good at using the library, you can always get better. And use all the things in the library. It's not just books, but databases, magazines, newspapers, journals, and not just for owls, for anything and everything. So I want to share with you, and I have a few copies of this on the table here. This is my owl bibliography. Books and websites that I use constantly about owls. And to go back to that, what if you don't know what type of owl it is? I can tell you an example from my very own life. Fall of 2016, my girlfriend and I went to Los Angeles to visit some friends of hers from college. And the first night we arrived, right around sunset, Airbnb in Pasadena, big suburb of LA, I hear this call. Well, that has to be an owl. It's not a great horned owl, and it's not this owl that lives in this area, it's not that. I could eliminate a few possibilities, but I didn't know what it was. Wasn't able to capture it on my phone? Oh yeah, don't be shy about using your phone. Most of us are walking around with a camera, still and video, a tape recorder, and a notepad. Even if you can't see the owl, record video so you can capture the audio. I wasn't able to document the owl, but thankfully I've got a pretty good memory for sound. I got the sound in my head. Now, this could be shocking, but I don't travel with all 50 of my albums. Only 20. No. I maybe had one, but I had my previous laptop, and I went to Owl Pages and owl.com. And again, being able to eliminate some possibilities and hone in on owls in Southern California, 10 minutes later, I knew that I had observed what's called a lifer. First time I had ever observed this bird in my life, a northern pygmy owl, a western owl species. The least we would have to travel from here to see a northern pygmy owl would be Utah. The trip was all downhill after that. The trip was excellent, but that was oh my God, we had a lifer owl, northern pygmy owl. So you do all of these things, they will help, but there's still one more piece to the puzzle. And you're already doing it. Collaboration. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your fellow park goers, share with them what you see, ask them to share with you. Because whether it's your block, your local park, what you see is significant and at the same time, a piece of the pie. You talk to 5 people, you have 5 people's knowledge, you talk to 25 people, that is what they call the military a force magnifier. It's also just a nice way to help other people and help them help you. And it's a great way to be a good neighbor and meet other people and even become friends with folks. And the collaborative piece of this is huge. After that amazing first night I had with Charles and Sarah, I'm doing my research, I'm doing my field work. I've seen the owls 1 out of 10 times. Enough to keep me going, and enough to be really frustrating. And guess what happened anytime I brought out my girlfriend or anyone else? No owls. They were very nice. Mark, we believe you.
Yeah, right.
We're also not seeing any owls. We believe you because you know what you're doing, but we're not seeing any owls. Well, I had already been collaborating. I had continued to collaborate. One day I'm talking to a colleague of mine at the time, a lady named Bapasha Biswas. I'm grateful to Bapasha to my dying day. She said, Mark, where are you looking for the owls? And I said, well, the Pasha, where I found them. And I described the area, and she listened and said, I would go about a half mile to the west. Go on. I said, really? She said, yeah, I'm there almost every night, and I see and hear owls all the time. Game-changing, life-changing information. I started to go over there. I went from 1 out of 10 to 3 out of 10, and then eventually 8, 9, 10 times out of 10. Could I maybe stumble on that on my own, or with a discussion with someone else? Possibly, but she just moved me up 20 steps. So you put all these things together, your homework, your field work, your documentation, your collaboration, you're going to see and hear owls more frequently, more consistently. I do have one very serious warning. Observing owls is totally addicting. I am not kidding. I've seen it happen to myself and many other people. And one of the things that makes it so cool is they're just so beautiful. You're getting outside, you're thinking in different ways. Now, if you're wondering, what's the true sign of owl addiction? It's when you start to dream about owls. And I dream about owls all the time. Now, to conclude, I want to circle back to something I mentioned very early, owl consultation. I am happy, very happy, to help you find the owls near your home. Owl consultation, I do it throughout the St. Louis region. You might hear that word consultation and be a little wary. You might be thinking, is this $100 an hour? No. It's $300 an hour. An adult beverage, okay, 2 adult beverages. With owl consultation, I really enjoy doing it because I get to help other folks. And at the same time, it broadens and deepens my owl experience and my owl knowledge. Now, it's also important to have realistic expectations. Please don't think that I'm going to show up in your neighborhood or your local park and in 5 minutes I'll be able to say, oh yes, there's Christopher. He's a 4-year-old barred owl. Oh, and I see that he prefers meadow voles to prairie voles. Oh, and he's a Libra. Very sensitive. We may not see or hear a bloody thing, but I will help you hone in on where to look and how to look. Owl consultation, I usually give it about a 50-50 shot that we'll see something. If we don't see something, 100% of the time, a day later, a month later, whatever, Mark, you saw the owl right in one of those areas in which you told us to concentrate. So owl consultation, a lot of fun. I also want to, and please consider this a standing offer. I also want to offer a standing invitation to come see the owls that I study. Join me on an owl prowl in Forest Park. An owl prowl is a 2-hour tour. You start at that key time, about an hour before sunset. Going out on weekends, weekdays, going out for about 2 hours. And yes, I lead owl prowls all the time, averaging about 70 a year. I just led owl prowl 32 this week. So I'm on a good pace this year. For a prowl, please email me not 1, but 3 to 4 dates, so we can set up a date and time. And with sunset being a moving target, when we meet is a moving target. Summer will meet as late as 7:15. Change our clocks in November, December. We'll be meeting as early as 3:30, 3:45. Group size, it could be just me and you, and up to 6 people. Now, if you have 7 people, you have 27 people that want to go, I'm happy to schedule as many owl prowls as needed to accommodate one and all. Now, if you're wondering, will we actually see an owl? I'm happy to say 98, 99% of the time, not only do we see owls, Charles and Company, but we get to see a lot of different behaviors. I also, with owl prowls, I encourage people to come out at different times of year because of these seasonal differences. In conclusion, I really want to wish you the best of luck and success in finding your local owls in your neighborhood. You can learn more about the owls that I study and my work with them You can ask the lovely folks here at the St. Genevieve Museum Learning Center to have me back. I've got 2 other talks that I haven't given here yet. One just on the hunting and feeding behaviors of the great horned owls I've studied. It's a very meaty subject. And then if you want to see a lot of cute little babies, I have a talk just on mating, nesting, and owlets. You can also find me online, blog, YouTube. I'm the co-administrator not of a Facebook group or page, but a Facebook community called Great Horned Owls. A very nice lady in the UK started it. And I was posting there so much, she said, Mark, I'm just going to make you the co-administrator. And then you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Forest Park Owls. And I really want to thank again the board, the staff, the sponsor of tonight's talk, everyone involved here at the Museum and Learning Center for having me back. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming tonight, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Thank you, guys. How did Carl go? Oh, that's a good question. I need a sip of water before that one. And a lozenge. If I could ask Charles one question, that would be it.
What was it?
How old are you?
Yeah.
Now, that said, I have a minimum age for Charles. But before I give that, let's backtrack a little. Great horned owls, not just found in Missouri and Illinois, the most widespread commonly found owl in North America. Every state except Hawaii. Every province and territory of Canada, we're not done yet, most of Latin America. This is a huge geographic range. It's one of the biggest of any bird of prey on the planet. And there's still a laundry list of things we don't know about great horned owls, including their average lifespan. We don't know it. We don't know the sex ratio. We could all take a second and say, oh, we have this many females, this many males, that's our sex ratio here right now. We don't know if males live longer than females, or the other way around. Charles is on mate number 8 in 18 years of me studying Charles.
Does he do eat his females?
What's that?
Does he eat his females?
No. And I always have to say to the human females, ladies, do not put on your judgmental pants. Charles has had to have many different mates because he's had to. 4 of his mates have died. 2 have disappeared, and 1 got shoved out by another. I mentioned my friend studying the same female great horned owl for 13 years. That female, Kate, is on her 3rd will. And I'm not talking about a legal document. I'm talking about a male great horned owl named Will. Is Charles normal? Is Kate normal? Are both of them aberrations? We don't know. The minimum age for Charles is something I can say, and that's no small bit. Charles is at least 20 to 21 years old, based on the fact that, yes, I've been studying him for 18 years, and 2, great horned owls generally don't have young until they're 2 to 3 years old. The first year I saw Charles, he and his maid Sarah had young. Charles was at least 2 to 3. Let's be 5. Let's be 8. Sarah sadly died in July of 2015. When she died, using the same equation, she was at least 12 to 13. So was she 17? Was she 24? Was she the much older female? So yeah, the age thing is a big and fascinating topic. Charles has a new mate this year. This mate is very young, the youngest female I've ever seen. When she arrived in late November, early December of 2023, she was right around maybe slightly less than a year old.
How could you tell that from the plumage color?
If we're able to hold her very closely, yes. Great horned owls, once they get beyond of age 2, you can't say whether they're 3 or 16.
Right.
But her behavior, not one moment on one night, one time, but multiple moments, multiple times, multiple nights, told us that she was young. All owls will bob their heads to get better depth perception on something they want to take a closer look at. Young owls bob their heads like they're at a concert. And there's the first night we really could see this female, she's bobbing her head. She was also kind of clumsy, kind of still learning how to be an adult. When she arrived, she and Charles had the full window for mating and nesting. They did not. And I am very confident it's because of her age in two ways. One, Charles looking at her saying, you're not ready yet, and I've been around. Charles and his mates have had 27 babies in the time I've been studying them. He knows what it takes to have a successful union. He's like, yeah, you got potential. You're not ready yet. Another way of looking at this is, this job requires a college degree. Charles is the hiring manager. Thank you for your resume. Good school, good references, good skills. You just finished your junior year. Sorry, I can't hire you. The other aspect of age, when Charles and her were interacting, duetting, and guess what? Duetting leads to mating. Sitting in a tree, M-A-T. It was clear that she didn't fully know what to do. It was like you were watching two actors on stage, and one actor has a script down cold, probably knows everyone's parts, and the other one's going, wait, where are we? I've received all the pages. So we named, I'll rephrase that, I named this female May. It's a lovely time of year. It's the month of my nativity. And yes, it is a May-December romance. So we shall see if perhaps Charles and May mate this year. Hopefully that will happen. We'll see. We take it one night at a time.
So when do they mate?
Great House, that huge geographic range, means
Around here.
around here.
Yeah.
Very good point. It's a great owl that lives in Alaska. It's a very different life from one that lives in Alabama, Argentina, Arkansas, Alberta, Arizona, never mind, Maine, Missouri, Maryland, Manitoba, Michigan, Mexico. Don't worry, I won't do the full alphabet. No. So huge variations in where they nest and when they nest. One thing you can generalize about Connecticut, California, Columbia, Missouri, the nation of Columbia, anywhere you have a great owl, they're one of the first, if not the very first bird to nest for very key reasons. Look at how big they are. They hatch from an egg about the size of a chicken egg. And not even a big, wow, look at that beautiful pasture-raised organic chicken egg. Like, that's from, Dairy Queen, whatever. They hatch from this egg and grow in a fascinating way. Their bodies explode in size. 80% adult height and weight in 2 months. Here's the curveball, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. Their bodies go like this. Their abilities take a glacially gradual time to catch up. In human terms, imagine a human with the human child, with the body of a teenager and the abilities of a toddler. No thanks. I always say, hug your children, hug your grandchildren, aunts, uncles, hug your nieces and nephews. I'll sometimes have parents say, that sounds like my sophomore in high school. Or are you cutting up their food? Are you dressing them? Can they walk, talk, read? Do they have a learner's permit? No, yes, yeah. Not even close. Are they immature? Yeah, sure, but not even close. So they take so long to mature that the parents just have to start really early. So around here, great horned owls will start to nest, not just mate, but nest in December and January. And then the young are here to the late summer, early fall, sometimes not so early fall, and then they start all over again. The owlets leave, they disperse from the parents' territory, and the parents, it's not like they say, oh, darling, the children have left, where shall we go now? Amalfi Coast, Buenos Aires, Thailand. No, it's, there they go. Okay, that's a break. I mentioned I'm one of 6 kids. My parents had us 10 years. Charles and Sarah, I saw them have 10 successful consecutive nesting seasons, 23 owlets. almost 4 times as many. So yeah, the breeding cycle for great horned owl is very intense, very long. So yeah, hopefully they will mate and nest, but again, one night at a time. Yes, sir.
You showed where the female was feeding the 2 owls. Does the male help at all?
Big time. Both parents work very hard, but there's a division of duties. With great horned owls, when a female is on the eggs, and with the very young youngsters who can't defend themselves, can't even maintain their own body temperature, female great horned owl will be on the nest for over 23 hours a day. My friend and owl mentee, Alexis, she and her husband have 2 sons. I said to Alexis a couple years ago, I said, do you remember being pregnant? She said, uh-huh. I said, well, imagine being pregnant in a closet. She said, no, thank you. The male great horned owl is not watching the game, not drinking a cold one. Doesn't mean he doesn't want to. No, he's doing all of the hunting. At that stage when Sarah was feeding Grace and Harold in April of 2015, they had left the nest and she was hunting too. And the owlets still need protection, still need to be fed, but they've reached a point where mom doesn't have to be literally sitting on them for over 23 hours a day.
Does he feed her on the nest?
He during nesting, the male is doing all of the hunting. And again, the female is bigger, so who needs more food on a day that ends in Y?
Yeah.
The female. As those eggs are developing inside of her, does that mean she needs even more food? Yes. You have 1, 2, maybe 3 owlets. 2 to 3 is average for a great horned owl. How do they get that big so fast? Lots of food. The males will go into a hunting overdrive and just catch lots of prey in a fascinating behavior that many owl species do. It's completely instinctual. They're not taught it. They don't learn it. They store prey. It's called caching prey. Male great horned owl, the hunting overload and caching can get very intense. There's a frequently cited litany of prey found in one great horned owl's nest. Included several fish, several species of birds, several species of mammals. The food alone in this nest weighed 18 pounds. On a couple of different years where his mate was starting to nest for the first time, it was like this switch went off in Charles, like, oh, you just started nesting. Okay, I'm on it. Goes off, catches prey, brings it back. Okay, good, all right, off we go again. Just amazing. So all the parents worked very, very hard to feed their young. Now back to that growth, just an explosion of great horned owls. The first year I saw Charles and Sarah, right around that time, late summer, early fall of 2005, in that same general area, I saw these tiny little owls with tufts. And I thought, oh, I'm seeing baby great horned owls. I was very new, very early in my research. And then once I learned that baby great horned owls get bigger, get so big so fast, I realized, yes, that was the late summer, early fall. A baby great horned owl will probably be 90, 95, 99% adult height and weight by then. I did not see a baby great horned owl. Idiot. Oh wait, now I know what I did see. Oh my gosh, I saw eastern screech owls. And I was so far, that may have been one of the last sightings at this point of eastern screech owls in Forest Park. The barred owls and great horned owls have been so successful and dominant in Forest Park that eastern screech owls have said, no thanks, we're going to go over here. And yes, owls eat other owls. A lady in Glendale, small suburb of St. Louis, between Kirkwood and Western Groves, emailed me a couple of years ago and said, Mark, I'm set up eastern screech owl box here and on here, and I'm trying to SMA, I just can't get them here. She should have offered some information much earlier than she did. In fairness to her, I should have asked a question, but like 3 emails later, she says, oh, By the way, I have a ton of great horned owls and barred owls near my home. Yeah, the eastern screech owls are not going to commit suicide and just come on into your yard. So, great horned owls are the third tallest owl in North America. At times, they will eat the two species larger than themselves. Not just babies, but adults.
What are the two largest species?
The two largest species in North America, number one is the great gray owl. Number two is the snowy owl. And yeah, great horns will eat herons and egrets and wild turkeys. Pet owners, small dogs, domestic cats, they eat groundhogs, minks, muskrats,
Chihuahuas.
Oh, yeah.
I've had people say, oh, I keep a good eye on my dog.
You can't.
Whether it's you or if you were Tyreek Hill, one of the fastest men in the NFL, the guy's been literally clocked running on the field at over 20 miles per hour. You, Tyreek Hill, would not be fast enough to react. So, what's the preventative measure? Leash on the dog, the leash in your hand at all times. Yeah.
I have a small lake and have Canada geese on it.
Hey, Canada geese.
And the white-headed American eagle came across it. And you think Canada goose has a neck about so long. Well, when he was about 8 feet over top of that group, those necks were
Oh, they jump out there.
and he left.
The geese left or the eagle left?
They all congregated together. I mean, they'd be swimming around here and there, but they went together in a small about like this.
Wow,
He
phalanx.
didn't bother.
Interesting.
He went over on the side, and
Okay.
I get pictures of him over there.
My second sighting of Charles, I'm walking to that area where I first saw them, and it's near it's called the lake, it's more kind of a big pond in Forest Park. And I'm passing by the north side of the lake, and the lake is full of Canada geese. And the Canada geese would be very uncharacteristically quiet. Canada geese usually sound like a cocktail party without the stemware. And I thought, that's kind of weird. And I was walking along. From the other side, the south side of the lake, I hear hoo, hoo, hoo. And I look, and there's what I later named Charles, right there. And I realized the Canada geese were playing the Please Don't Eat Me game.
Yeah.
There's my Aunt Phyllis. Look at the meat on her. There's my cousin Bill. You look tasty. Please don't eat me. Yeah.
Do you ever talk to Charles?
Oh, sure. And it was funny the other day, I was with my friends and mentees, and I mentioned to the third person, oh, that's Charles. And my friend and mentee, Darius, said his head snapped around. It may have been a complete coincidence. I have no proof, evidence that he knows his name, things like that. But we talked to Charles.
But he probably knows your voice.
He might. I can't say, but he might. And, we're there watching them. We talk very quietly. I'm not booming like I am now.
Hey, Charles.
What is their rotation? 270 or something?
On their head. So all owls have very large eyes. Great horned owl, eastern screech, barred, burrowing, tawny, doesn't matter. And they also have a bony ring around their eyes, almost like goggles. This bony ring is called a sclerotic ring. Between those two things, they can't move their eyes. They can focus their eyes independently at times, which is amazing. But they have no peripheral vision. We can all fix our head, but move our eyes around. So yes, I did trim my fingernails before I came down to St. Joseph. You're welcome. They can't do that. They would have to turn their heads. We have 7 vertebrae in our neck. Owls have 14. And at times, on the horizontal axis, chest out this way, they can turn their heads just shy of 270 degrees. Now, not only are their bones flexible, their air and blood pathways have evolved so they can move too. If skeletally we could move our heads like this but our blood pathways also move. We were just choke ourselves out. On the vertical axis, just shy of 180 degrees.
Wow.
Several summers ago, we had a couple of memorable nights of Charles, chest out like this, head like that. And I always tell people, I don't care how much yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi you do. Don't try that anywhere.
No.
But, yeah, great pronounced size, as big as every adult in this room for an animal that's 18 to 25 inches tall. These are massive eyes.
I'd forgotten the part that they cannot move their eyes.
Yes, yeah, and that has its limitations as well.
Same as crocodile. If you stand directly in front of a crocodile, it cannot see you within a certain range.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
Thankfully.
yes, but they can also smell you and things like that. Yeah.
So, changing the subject back to hearing them and then sighting them.
Yep.
What if you had one, and so you were saying, follow the sound.
Follow the sound.
Okay, what if you've got one calling over here, sorry,
Yeah.
and there's another one answering over here?
You pick your battles.
Okay.
Hopefully you might have someone else with you and say, okay, divide and conquer. Or you try and triangulate. We also biangulate and triangulate with warning calls. That warning call isn't always going to be coming from the same tree in which the owl is located. With warning calls, mobbing, all these things is often a social alarm call, and it's not always clear, am I hearing the first responders or the fifth stage of repetition? And so there will be times where my mentees and I are biangulating, triangulating, listening for greater intensity here, greater intensity for that. It's trial and error with lots of trial and lots of error.
Do they habituate to an area?
They do. And they never stop mixing it up.
No.
Charles has been, I had more hair earlier in June. Not that much more, but Charles on June 16th said, oh, you have a nice territory. Well, I'm going to go about at least a third of a mile away. I still need to measure it, but that's a decent rough estimate. And he stayed there for 2 weeks. And eventually May joined him. And then they went back to their territory. We're like, great, okay. We have some precedent of this in varying manifestations. Well, the past 4 nights, he's gone back and forth every night.
He can't make his mind up.
No, he's just like, let's mess with the humans.
And
It's endlessly fascinating, endlessly challenging. Another way of looking at how complex and how variable this is, going back to my tree names, I now have over 70 trees and groups of trees named. And if he keeps going over to this area a third of a mile away, I'm going to have to start naming trees. That has already come up. In mid-May of 2019, Charles disappeared, and I couldn't find him for 10 days. And I eventually found him, thanks to some mobbing. I was literally about to call it a night. And I heard some mobbing, and I listened, and I analyzed, and I walked a little more, and I said, okay, I'm going to follow that. And I found Charles in an area where he hoots and hunts. And what was he doing? He was hooting and hunting. I'm like, okay, where have you been? Well, the next day I went to some of his regular areas, and he wasn't there. I said, okay, I'm going out to where you were. He spent the next 5.5 months in that area, about a half mile from the core of his territory. All of the tree names, all of the angles, all of the knowledge that I had gained, I had to put it in the drawer. I didn't burn it, but I was like, I can't use this. I had to learn new trees, new animals, new everything else. 5.5 months later, he moved back. In the following year, in mid-May of 2020, he disappeared. And my friends and I scoured Forest Park. We were getting so desperate, we were like, okay, where have we never seen him? Let's go look there. We did not find him. After 8 weeks of not finding him, I made a very tough call. then he was no spring chicken, that given his age and 8 weeks of not seeing him, Charles is probably dead. And it was very tough to share that news, especially in 2020. There's plenty of bad news to go around. I was very touched by people's reaction. 2 weeks later, there he is back in the Corvallis territory.
So in the May when he disappeared, was he still feeding young?
No, he didn't have young that year.
Okay.
In 2019 or 2020. And he didn't have young this year. But even in 21, 22, with Charles and his, do the math, 5th mate, Sophie, had young, he was doing some of these summer excursions. And he never answers my emails. No. And yeah, I mean, it's endlessly fascinating, endlessly complex. And, you know, I have learned a lot. I have more questions now than I did 18 years ago. It's that classic Socratic process of not saying, oh, look at how much I know. It's having a better understanding of how much you don't know. So these guys will keep you humble, even when you don't want them to. And yeah, I mean, even now, I will walk right past Charles.
Will they nest in your backyard?
If it checks the boxes, yes. If it doesn't, no.
And are they happy nesting in our pot?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Okay.
With a nest box for any animal, you gotta have very small, very realistic expectations. It's not the movie Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. If you build it, you may not get anyone.
Start
And if you build it for species A, you might get species Q.
Yeah.
You have to have very realistic expectations. Several years ago, a columnist for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, educated professional journalist, wrote a whole column about how they saw a barred owl in their backyard, were really excited, went out, got plants for a barred owl box, built the barred owl box, and gosh darn it, we got eastern gray squirrels in it. And I'm reading this thing, well, it's okay that you didn't know this stuff, but you're a journalist. You should be doing your research and doing your homework and talking to people. And 0 for 3, you're out. You're just really showing you didn't do the work. And that you really don't know much about animals. And that's okay, but you should be learning about these things.
They did not take to the box.
No, she got eastern gray squirrels.
Where did Charles go hunting? Does he have an open field that he goes, or trees, or any place?
Many different places.
Yeah.
Driving here today, I did an exercise I do when I travel anywhere. Car, plane. I will look out at my immediate surroundings and I'll ask myself, could this work for a pair of great horned owls? So widespread, so commonly found. They live in almost every habitat in the Americas. My answer today, and most of the time, is yes, yes. Right, not that parking lot, but yes, yes, yes. Great horned owls are so adaptable. Again, that whole list of places, you can find great horned owls in just the St. Louis region, in those areas. I've had them right in people's backyards, big yards, small yards, city yards, suburban yard, rural yard. So adaptable. What do they need? Some trees for roosting, for sleeping in. Some places to nest, and we're going to come back to that in a second. And then some open areas to hunt. They don't exclusively need open areas to hunt, but they do need some open areas to hunt. People will ask me, well, you know, what should I do to my yard? I said, well, it depends on your yard and your context. For some people, it's, I can't even see where I park because you have so many trees. You need to open this up a little. Other places, okay, is that Cleveland? Because that's several hundred miles away. You need some more trees. Great horned owls nest in more different sites, spaces, places. Not just compared to any other owl in North America, but any other bird in the Americas, plural. So we could all go out right around here tonight and find a robin's nest. We all agree what the robin's nest looked like. Are there any local bald eagle nests here?
Yeah.
In the St. Genevieve area?
Yeah.
You could go out, show us, show me. Yeah, that's a bald eagle's nest. Largest animal-made structure on the planet, bald eagle's nest. I can take you to Forest Park, and you can saw some of the photos and say, oh yeah, that's where Sarah nested in 08, 2012, and Danielle nested unsuccessfully there in 2020. Sophie had young 2 owls in 2021, 2022. The only reason I can do that is because I saw it. Like if you said right now, let's go look for a great horned owl's nest. It's July. They're not nesting. The only way to know that, yes, that is a great horned owl's nest is to have someone like me say, yes, I saw an owl nest here, here's documentation, or to see one actively nesting. Just across the river, a group, really cool conservation group in Randolph, Monroe, and St. Clair counties is called Clifftop. And big focus of this group is bluff habitat preservation, restoration, and so forth. And several years ago, they emailed me and said, Mark, we've got this really cool preserve. It's 535 acres. Would you come out here and lead an owl prowl for our membership? I said, I'd love to. Here's the catch. I don't know where it is, and I've never been there before in my life. Can we do a scouting trip? They said, good idea. I said, it's like, yeah, I need some information. So I'm driving out there, and I see a few things, and I park there, and I'm looking at the land, and I ask these kind folks some key questions based on what I'm seeing, and based on their answers, I said, okay, take me to the area that has the most of this, and let's see what we can see. We get out there, 10 minutes later, I see a large structure in the tree. Get my binos on. Oh wow, that's a red-tailed hawk's nest. Or not red-tailed, maybe red-shouldered. Have my camera. Because I'm looking at my binos, I'm like, do I see something? I'm not sure. Grab my camera, take a photo, zoom in. Yeah, that's a female great owl nesting on that red-tailed hawk's nest. They said, how the heck did you do that? I said, ESL, experience, skill, and luck. But I asked questions. You gave me answers. I worked with what I'm seeing. Let's go here. What I wasn't seeing was huge trees like some of the ones we've seen where the owls have nested. Yeah, I wasn't seeing trees that were big enough to have a cavity, a snag, or hollow to fit not just a female great horned owl, but 1, 2, 3, yet possibly even 4 or 5 youngsters. 4 or 5 is very rare. So I said, take me to your area that has the biggest trees, and what did I see coming in? I saw a red-tailed hawk. And I said, do you have red-tailed hawks here? They said, yeah, all the time. And I said, I'm looking at this area, I've seen open areas and groups of trees. And they said, yeah, this is a farm we're restoring to prairie. I said, are these trees the windbreaks for the farm? They said, yes. So asking good questions, getting good information. 10 minutes later, we had a great horned owl.
They don't build nests anything like the bald eagle would.
That's a great question. A fascinating thing about owls. Almost categorically, no owl makes a nest.
They steal them.
They just use what works. And it's so weird because you think, what makes a bird? Oh, they fly, they're warm-blooded, they make a net. I was like, yeah, I was sick that week from school, or yeah, I didn't take that class. Thank you so much. Good to see you. So yeah, it's a funny thing that owls don't make nests, and they will, some of them will use nests made by other birds.
So but typically do they nest in a spot like that on a tree, in a hollow cavity or no?
That's one of many. So again, great horned owls nest in more spaces, places, sites than any other bird in the
So
Americas.
they'll nest in an open nest.
They'll nest in open nests. They'll nest in man-made places. They'll nest, oh, there's a little divot on the ground. They'll nest there.
In the ground?
Sometimes. It's rare, but it happens. Yeah, it's tricky. Again, great horned owls, oh, easy to study. They live in almost every habitat in the Americas.
You're right.
That makes them very hard to study. Because,
The one I was telling you here at the beginning of the evening where I have this nest in an outhouse. And it just had an opening enough.
There you
They
go.
had a ridge down through there of metal, hay bale, wind.
Okay.
And they raised a picture of that. And they set a camera up there.
Nice.
And he showed me that. That was fascinating.
That's a good way to do it.
Please ask them to contact me and send me some of their footage.
That would be one. I don't see him very often, but
Because that sounds like barn owls, the number of owls and so forth.
well, I believe they,
White face, monkey type face, heart-shaped face,
but
one with the screeching sound.
there's about
Yeah.
four or five brothers that live together. One of them passed away right now. But anyway, they set that camera up there, and it just showed them, just run that.
Yeah. And then the baby's just growing.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing about owl nesting is they lay their eggs at different times. And so you get a real difference in ages and stages of growth and maturation. And it's called the asynchronous egg laying and asynchronous hatching. Yes, sir.
How much pressure can they actually put on their claws when they...
I haven't found a good figure for that with great horned owls, how much pressure they can exert with their talons, and that's how they catch such big prey. Very powerful, large, heavily muscled talons. The talons of a great horned owl are so strong that at times they can break bones and puncture organs. I can give you a figure for the reverse of the process. Not only do their talons put out a lot of pressure and they're so heavily muscled, the way the leg musculature closes the talons lock. And pretty much the only thing that will open them is the owl saying, okay, I'm done. To open the locked talons of a great horned owl requires just under 30 pounds of pressure. To open my fist, your fist, Tyree Hill, top UFC fighter, you name it, top athlete, not even close to 30 pounds of pressure. How many of you have ever heard an injured rabbit? Really, no one? A screaming? Would you pay money to lose that memory?
What was your
When they
question?
squeal?
Have you ever heard an injured injured rabbit?
Oh, squeal.
A horrible screaming, squealing sound. That, people often say, yes, I would pay money to lose that memory. Where do I sign? Well, on my card is my YouTube channel. You can see a whole sequence of footage of Charles on April 1st, 2019. He had been waking up, stretching and grooming. He had just flown to his next tree. Life's just beginning. Something catches his attention behind him. He does a 180 off the tree, lands 20, 30 feet in front of me. You see motion, you hear leaves, branches, and he comes out with a full-grown eastern cottontail rabbit. And you heard nothing
Oh, no.
from the rabbit. Why? Because he killed it so quickly.
So they got their talons bigger and stronger than a bald eagle?
They were nice threats.
Probably not, but probably close. I mean, bald eagles will catch some big prey. Bald eagles will kill ducks and geese and things like that. So they can put out the pressure. But it can be hard to quantify some of these things. But yeah, I mean, again, getting attacked by a great round, like getting clubbed and stabbed all at once. Another person said it was like getting punched with spiked brass knuckles. A photographer photographic great horned owls in a remote area of Saskatchewan, was knocked out of the tree. The guy plummeted to the ground, breaking his pelvis. He had to crawl to a road to get help. Do we have any medical people here, nurses, doctors? I've asked nurses, doctors, physical therapists about a broken pelvis, how painful, how long of recovery. Horribly painful, horribly long recovery. Some of them said, depending on the break, you could be at severe risk of bleeding to death internally. Yeah, you don't want to anger a great horned owl.
So when you hear kerfuffle in the backyard,
Yeah, mobbing.
thank you.
Yeah. Don't worry, I speak kerfuffle.
Thank you. Typically, is that when the sun has just gone down? Is there a specific time? Does it happen after dark?
Sometimes.
But not often, probably?
It depends on what's happening.
Oh.
So again, the mobbing could be hawk, snake, owl, your neighbor's cat. Those things can happen at various times. So again, coming out of my hotel, I heard American robin call. I was like, whoa, we got a predator around here. Red-tailed, red-shouldered hawk. I'll never forget driving from my venue to the hotel, my first talk in Mexico, Missouri, a few years ago. I heard really tense American robin warning calls, and then I heard kind of, I'm like, oh, I think someone just got what I need to get now, which is dinner. And I was like, wow, that was cool. That was cool.
Wow.
Well, thank you guys so much. One last question from the manager himself.
Yeah, so I've had at least 4 times when I've had a owl come down and very close to my windshield or glance off the windshield. Is that like a thing?
Unfortunately, it is.
Okay.
Mobbing?
No peripheral vision. I can't see you. I can't see your car.
Therefore, you're not there.
Yeah. Owls, whether it's a road, a field, or a lake, they'll go 50, 60, 70 feet or 4 inches. My biggest concern with Charles & Company in Forest Park is cars. Because I've seen them go way high over a car, go between 2 cars. I mean, not just, headlight height. We're talking like bumper height, wheel height. I've seen them go between cars. Other times I've seen Charles, here comes the car, and he goes over. If he sees it head on, he might be able to move. He might be able to recognize it. I remember one night watching Sarah kind of tee up on an eastern gray squirrel. It's like, Sarah, if you miss that squirrel, you're going to go right over this road. And sure enough, she missed the squirrel right between 2 cars. So more likely than not, that owl is going between A and B. She couldn't see it. And yeah, they will get hit by cars, they'll get injured by barbed wire, electrical wire. If you have a rodent problem, do not, I beg you, do not use rodent poison. If you have to use rodent poison, find the rodent and dispose of it quickly and responsibly. Hawk, owl, snake, finds the dead or dying rodent, says, hey, easy meal, eats the rodent, dies a slow, horrible, painful death. Better traps are physical traps, and you know what are the best mouse traps? The ones that have been evolving for millions of years. We haven't gotten to the best mouse trap. Your owls, hawks, snakes, that's your best mouse trap. So I hope you see more owls, but I hope it's safer for the owls. Yeah, I've had some of those encounters. It's exciting and terrifying. Well, thank you guys so much. Stick around for the show. Thank you.